So remembering back to when we were working with Python, if we wanted to make a decision, we had to use an if statement. Okay, and so we're going to be using if statements again in Arduino, and it really works pretty much the same. The big difference is they're slightly different. I guess the way that you type it out is a little bit different, and but otherwise it works pretty much the same way, and it's just as important. So whenever you want to make a decision, that's when we use if. Okay, and so I'm going to set this up in the loop here. Okay, and so what we can do is we'll just say we'll have the same thing we did before. We're counting up by 1, and what we'll do is we'll say, all right, so we're going to print I, and then we're going to say if, and then we'll have parentheses. When we use if, we need the parentheses, and then we need braces to show you what's inside of the if. Okay, so anything between these braces are inside the if, and you can see, like, whenever you have a set of braces like this, a little arrow comes up here, and we can collapse it to save space. So if I want to collapse this whole loop to kind of save space and clean things up, I can, and then I can open it up. Okay, and then whatever's inside the if will be tabbed over once, and you can actually nest if statements. Okay, and so then they'd be tabbed over again, and you can make another if statement inside of here, and that'd be tabbed over again, and so on. And so you kind of see the hierarchy of these ifs. This if is inside of that one, which is inside that one. And so these would only occur in the cases where this was true, and this would only occur in the case where that was true. So anyway, we'll get into like stuff like that later. Really just, this is the notation for an if statement. And so let's check to see if I is divisible. Let's say if it's an even number. Okay, something we did before. So if I is, when you divide it by 2, gives you a remainder that's equal to 0. And I believe I have to put a semicolon. No, I don't need to. Then what we're going to say is serial. We'll leave this on an open line. Okay, serial.println. And then we'll add a space and say this is an even number. Okay, and so what I've done here, I made it so that after it prints I, it's going to check to see if I is divisible by 2. So if when we divide I by 2, if the remainder is equal to 0, in that case we're going to print this is an even number. Okay, and so we can go ahead and check it, and then as we go through the loop, remember that we're going to increment I and then go back through again, and so this will happen on the times through where it is even. Now I'm going to go like this. So we said, so what I wanted to do is skip a line every time, and so this was set to only skip when it was an even number, so I'm going to have to add this right here, serial.println to skip a line. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this one right here. Okay, so this is here to skip a line. Here's where we check if I is divisible by 2, and then this is what we do if I is even. Okay, so let's go ahead and try it. We're hooked up, so I can go ahead and run it on the Arduino. Oh, and here we go. We got a typo, and I forgot a semicolon right here. Okay, let's try it again. All right, let's run it. Okay, so we're going to turn on the serial monitor. We're going to click connect, and so look at that. It's counted up. It says which numbers are even. Okay, so it looks like we succeeded. Okay, so if you look at the beginning, it says that 0 is an even number. That's debatable, but you get the idea. So what we can also do, I'll turn this off for now so we have a little bit more screen space to work with. I can say add an else. So like maybe I want it to say, if it's an odd number, to say that this is an odd number. So what I can do is make an else. Okay, so just like before, if, and so the else happens only when the if isn't true. So this happens when I %2 double equals 0. So what happens is it checks if this is true, and if this statement is true, it does this. When it's false, it does nothing, or if there's an else statement, it will do the else statement. So the else statement happens when this is false. Okay, and so we'll tell it to print this is an odd number. Okay, so this is an odd number, and this is what to do if I is odd. Okay, so we'll run it again. Okay, connect to the serial monitor. Okay, and so it's telling me every time whether the number is even or odd. Okay, so that's basically how it goes. Those are if statements. Just like before, we can also use an else if statement. Okay, and you know, the way you do that is you just put an if right here, and you'd have the braces, or the bracket, or the parentheses, sorry, losing my mind right now, the parentheses right there, and then you could make a statement in there. I mean, we've done the else if before. This could come up in some cases, and you could add an else at the end if you want to. You don't have to. Okay, and then you can string together as many else ifs as you want to. You could even inside your else have another if statement. Okay, let's see if it will verify it. Yeah, it's not going to verify it because I can't leave this empty. But you kind of get the idea that you can kind of string these things together. Okay, and then this is where we actually like take this stuff and use it to do things. So the reason these if statements are important is because this is where we can decide to actually take an input, say like if a button is pressed or not, and use it to make a decision about what to do. So like maybe I have some kind of output I'm looking at, or maybe I'm like checking to see if a button's pressed, and if the button is pressed, then I'm going to say do this, else do this, something like that. This is where we do that kind of thing. Okay, so this is an important piece that allows us to actually like take some information coming in and make decisions with it. Now we're not going to look at inputs quite yet, but just know that when we do, the if statement is really, really important. Okay, this is a really important piece of code, probably one of the most important pieces that we're going to be using in our programs, because this is how we tell it to make a decision.